We are talking about the B-movie horror Furry Nights. Now this one is based on the phenomena of furries, and in case you don't know, it is a sexual preference, shall we say, where people dress up as kind of cartoon kind of furry animals and go and, you know, have sex and stuff whilst they are in these kind of like costumes. It's not completely just a kind of sex thing. People just do it for fun as well, but ultimately that is a big part of it. Now that is the basis of this movie. It follows a group of young filmmakers as they are in the woods camping out, trying to make just kind of like a low budget creature feature. And while they're there, they encounter like a group of furries that are doing some kind of party a short distance from them. And these guys seem to be a little bit weird. They all kind of scurry away once they're kind of spotted. And later on that night, one of the kind of the group of these filmmakers hears some kind of rummaging around, and they think it's an actual animal and shoot, but it's actually one of these furries kind of like rummaging around in their food. And this causes the this group of furries to come and kind of like avenge their fallen comrade. And obviously it's this case of these group of furries versus this kind of group of amateur filmmakers. And what will happen? Well, you'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss Furry Nights. This one's directed and written by J. Zachary Thurman. Obviously kind of a low budget movie with a kind of quite a unique selling point. It's quite a fun idea, I suppose, and they've made these kind of furries look a variety of ways. Like, for example, we have one called Mr. Fox, which is the default leader, and his costume is quite menacing looking and actually looks like, wouldn't look out of place in pretty much any other kind of slasher, whilst all of the other characters are kind of more fun. There's a kind of like a poodle looking woman who looks a little scary, I will say, and there's a kind of like a bunny who's just kind of hopping around, but he's kind of looks more cartoony. And it's just the thing about seeing these guys with, you know, chainsaws and kind of various murderous weapons. I know it's not the first time we've seen that. We've obviously got the Bunny Man Massacre and stuff like that, but here we are with a whole bunch of them. So a low budget movie, not particularly gory. There is a few kind of deaths, but there's not a lot of gore on display here. Obviously played for with its tongue in cheek. I mean, the furries always speak with like a speeded up audio track, so you can never understand. They sound like they're on helium all the time. Doesn't really make sense, to be honest with you. These guys don't communicate with speaking. They just go beep, beep, and they can obviously understand each other. It's obviously a vocal track that's sped up. Doesn't really make sense when you think about it. And even when one of our kind of like group of our protagonists just puts on one of these costumes to try and hide himself, he ends up speaking like that as well. There's also a fight scene where someone dressed up as a kangaroo has like kind of kangaroo like jumping powers, so it's not taking itself too seriously. Oh, so the movie starts out fairly strong. I mean, it's low budget, and they're making this kind of low budget film, and it's some kind of creature feature, and there's a guy like in a kind of monster suit, but it literally says morph suits on it, so I found quite funny. It literally just doesn't even hide that. But the premise is quite strong, to be honest. It's in a kind of a B-movie way, and I quite like that. When we see these furries, they kind of do look a little threatening, the way that they don't speak, they sort of scurry off like actual animals. And then when we sort of see them, especially in the kind of the night scenes, it's actually shot quite well, and they kind of do look particularly, quite menacing. In particular, the Mr. Fox character, who's kind of like a bigger guy with this kind of quite menacing kind of hood, and he kind of acts with quite threatening body language. So he was I thought quite well cast. I wasn't keen on the audio from them, like I've said, but there you go. But I've got to say, once we get to the kind of the halfway mark, you kind of just lose track. The movie just kind of like loses track of where it is, and people go off, and then we don't see them again for ages, and you kind of forget about them, and you're thinking who's alive and who's dead. It just loses a little bit of focus, I feel, and you find yourself watching very similar scenes after very similar scenes, and it just kind of gets a little bit lost in the muddle. Like I said, this is not one to be taken particularly seriously, but if you do want to apply logic to it, you're going to be out of luck on this one, because a lot of it doesn't make sense, and it's obviously not meant to, but I don't feel you can kind of, I always think with, for example, comedies, you can kind of, some people kind of like write the problems off because, oh, it doesn't make sense, but it's a comedy, so it's okay. I feel you still have to have some type of structure in it, to be honest. Anyway, it's a bit of fun, I will say. It's obviously kind of a low budget film. Our actors, so to speak, on our kind of like little film crew are a kind of a mixed bag. I don't think they kind of are particularly fantastic. The one thing that really bothered me about this film, and it's one little plot point, and even it being a kind of a horror comedy, it kind of, I don't think this is legitimate criticism, is when they kill the basically it's 3 girls and 3 guys, and they kill this furry who's kind of rummaging around in their stuff, and it's the 3 guys that do it, and they just kind of like ditch the body off, and the next day they go straight back to filming the next scene, and it's just like nothing's happened. One guy's kind of freaking out a little bit about it, but it just seems like you would just get out of there, considering the rest of these furries are kind of literally 100 yards away. You would just, it's one of these kind of like plot points I don't think can be forgiven. They should have just tried to got out straight away. And there's a few other kind of moments of conveniences as well, like, oh, the furries have got hold of the car keys. They must have just left them in the ignition like you do. So yeah, it ends up being a little bit silly, but it's kind of fun at the same time. Should you see it? If you like a kind of cheesy B movie, then I would say yeah, it's kind of worth a laugh. I don't think it's a classic. But it's worth a kind of look if you're kind of into that sort of thing. It's fun, it's a goofy premise, it's a kind of fairly short, so it's a fairly well paced movie in the fact that it's quite a short running time. Yeah, so I would give it a 5 out of 10. It's just a bit of a fun romp, a fun horror costumed romp. There you go. 5 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.